up the wall or anything. Here, so you can like look at a good book.
Yeah, so we are right now. We're live, so
Okay.
I'm gonna let him know that he can jump in.
All right. Yep. That'd be cool. And then I'm assuming someone told Hitchcock where we are, but let me give them a call.
Very good. Okay.
Is this the summer? I have the CPS Wi-Fi password though.
No, but you could do it on my computer. It's my work computer. Huh? No. How about you get a book? When you
Trust me, let me throw it out.
Huh? You could go outside and play with your friends. That would be an even better idea. They're not going to be happy if you hear that you've been seeing them all day on the computer. Looking at you today.
I'll get a user.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. What are you going to do when you get out? Oh,
Go to CPS.
my password is space second one. Capital S.
Here's my phone.
Yeah. Well, it's my mouse pad. And then you do not need to be on VPN. Hardwired mouse. Which water bottle do you want? You just can't hear. Use this. Cancel everything. You can't hear. No, stop. I have to make sure that people don't think that I'm working. Hi.
Do we get on the jumper stuff?
Mr. Roberts has a live stream going on, so that Mr. Toledo can participate. That was awesome. We had it set up. I was like, oh, go over, make sure we're ready to go.
Hopefully, it's too bad Mr. Toledo is sick, but I'll try to, I guess, take notes. I don't know. And I'll share with him, but
Because he's got a lot of agenda items that.
I know, well,
Probably
that's
need
what,
to get
certain
communicated.
things, I mean, nothing against Mr. Rock, I just feel like Mr. Toledo is so much, you know, like, he's just crucial to,
Yeah. Well, he should be live streaming it as far as he's gonna tell him that we're on, so you might see or hear him anytime now. And then, I'm assuming, I haven't really talked to anybody at Hitchcock, I'm assuming Harriet's gonna be doing all that, so.
I'm excited too, so this will be, so, I've never really looked at these kind of design drawings, so it's from the top down, right? So it's a little different.
Mhm. So there'll be all plan views and,
It'll be a little different to take in.
yeah, and, I think they were gonna have do some imagery with it as well, so like showing examples of things, so, yeah, so we'll be talking about it on a plan, looking down. I'm charging my phone, saying no, no, say no, close it, close it, close it, I'm just charging my phone. And, so I think the plan was for them to show us two design options.
I don't know, Mr.
And
Roberts.
then at the end of our session, we are hopefully gonna take, chances are there'll be different ideas from different plans.
Okay,
And so the thought is to then come up with sort of a list of things that we like maybe from Plan A.
okay,
and
so
Plan
that,
B.
okay. and
So we're not
okay,
gonna be forced into making a decision like,
Okay,
okay, we're voting on
Good to
Plan
know.
A,
That's-
everything in Plan
okay,
A.
that was kind of my thought process. What do
No.
they,
No,
so this is just,
these are,
Take it
these are
in.
design options,
okay,
thoughts and ideas. So basically they've taken all that information that we've sent over to them, all the talking points from our last meeting, and they now have put them into drawing format
okay,
for us to
Oh,
review and
cool.
look at and talk about. So that's why I did not realize that we did not communicate this is gonna be like every couple of hours. of
well,
working session.
I figured, because when you guys were saying like or somebody said an hour, I'm like,
No, I was like, oh, this is like a 2 or 3 hour.
I-
thing.
You're saying like a 2 to 3 hour meeting?
Yeah,
so you weren't aware, okay,
No.
well, sorry, and you were kind of thrown in, thank you
He
for,
told me that it was like a 30-minute meeting.
okay, well,
So
Oh.
I think he's betting a 30-minute meeting. I mean,
no.
so what can't, so, right, okay, so we're kind of looking at, it's good to know,
Are you
so,
okay?
well, the part we close at 2:45.
Right,
It's
'cause-
locked up.
yes, my kids are
Oh,
out
like
at the,
literally,
Yeah.
it's locked up?
Mhm.
We
okay,
can't stay beyond that?
Like all of our custodial 7 engineers are done for the day.
Well, that's okay, but can we stay, I mean, you could lock us out, right?
I have to think about all my commitments this afternoon. I don't know if I can stay past 2:30.
Well, that's what I'm just asking. Are you
Yeah.
okay to stay and if there's a way, okay. All right, well,
we'll get as much,
We'll
maybe
do
get
our
as much
best.
done before 2:30.
yeah, I mean, keep in mind.
I'm like, I'm ready.
I know,
I'm
we
such a
have
dork.
to because
But
our,
no.
our next meeting is, we're done.
Right,
Remember, we only pay for 2 meetings.
okay, shoot, so.
This is
okay.
not, this is, anytime you add a meeting, it's gonna cost money. That was the terms of the contract. That's why we got it for a good price. It was, everybody needs to be at all the meetings. It's not happening today. And everyone has to be present and available.
So this is so.
And
so
decisions
this-
will be made, whatever decisions
Right.
are made today, that's what we're going with. So if people aren't here and able to
So
participate, then that's an
notes
issue.
afterwards are just informational, right? So these are decisions, so.
Right, so those
Whatever
meeting
notes,
notes
we
that,
took.
Yeah.
These certain items, they're putting these all together onto one last plan,
Mhm.
is that what? Okay. So it's purely informational, what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't, honestly, from Friends of Both standpoint, we don't wanna spend more, obviously. We don't want to,
no, I mean, yeah, this was all meant to be very efficient.
yes.
Everything
I will,
everybody-
I'm like, how can you tell? I'm like the,
I know
I'm like
The
the
only
project
thing
job,
he
ready to
told
go.
me that he wanted was to find a way to, in essence, partition the parents that are coming to the school
Mhm.
away from.
So they don't get
Like-
attacked, like today, I'm like, don't spray me,
Right.
Yep.
yes.
Yep, so that was definitely a key talking point at our last meeting. I fully anticipate there is, that's gonna be communicated today.
Mr. Toledo was also very clear that he wanted some type of educational aspect, whatever that is, I don't know. So whether that's something to do with the natural environment out there, but he did keep saying he wanted it to be. So hopefully they're able to integrate. They have a big job, so they've
Yeah.
gotta they've gotta take in safety considerations, they have to take into hopefully some educational aspect area to the campus. They have to come up with a good play space, right, to keep
Right.
Ms. McGoldrick and Mr. Ryder happy. So, but that is what we. Okay, so 2:30. Okay. Yes, because from Friends of Hope standpoint, we don't want to spend.
Too much.
too much. Not at this phase.
You're control. Should be on. Should I got on the list to just take it up there. Who's sending your Google? Huh? Is he good? Okay, we should be good.
Well, we definitely need shade out there. I can tell you that I've put sunblock on my kids every day for the Funstitute. I've put sunblock on them, and they are
Still-
only out half the day. So they spend the morning doing educational things indoors, and then the afternoon they've been outside. They love it so far. I think it's a perfect balance for them, but I do have to say, whatever they come up with, there needs to be shade, because my kids, when I come get them, they're like sunburned, and I'm like, wait. I put sunblock on you, and so definitely, hopefully they will. They've got a lot to incorporate. So, like she said, hopefully pieces from. I hope they find the library. I forget where the library is. I forgot. I was walking around. Because we don't come here, if you
Well, if
know.
they come in, they should check. Because there are people at the front door now since everyone's outside.
They asked me when I was coming in, like,
Maria, come in.
they asked me, well, they thought I was coming to pick up my kids. I'm here for a meeting, but I'm glad that they checked, right?
Charisse, come in.
Too funny. We're like ready to go. Oh.
Mr. Roberts, she sent you up from a while ago. You need something?
Yeah, I just want to let you know that some people are coming today for a meeting, and we'll be in the library.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Yep, thank you. All right, Mr. Toledo's here.
The track is running over. But they left at 12:10. Gave themselves 50 minutes to get here. Traffic is
Yeah.
not going well. So, hi. Which track's a few minutes behind. Maybe. Mr. Roberts. So, see you all tomorrow. Yeah. I forgot that, what was it, the movie night was tomorrow night too. I have a
Yes,
ticket for
we're
that.
doing both.
Are
So,
you?
We're going to go to, or
If I have it,
Simon
I
is
do both,
so-
I might have to do it.
Simon's so excited about the movie.
It was a $10 donation.
I know, that's what I'm like, I mean, I feel bad if they're like planning on a lot of people and then people don't show
Well, the
up.
weird thing is, so I think people definitely wait till the last minute to buy their tickets, because I've talked to a lot of, Vincent was in 102, and I talked to a lot of parents in 102, and they're like, we're coming.
Mhm,
Only 7 tickets. I bought 2,
mhm.
so 5 tickets have only been bought. So I have a
I
feeling.
bought 4. I mean, I bought one for each of us. I figured all
Shoot,
4 of
so
us
cool.
would go. So maybe
Okay,
that's
so
why I'm just like,
maybe-
so if
I'm
I,
not sure, because we
because it didn't look like a very long email list, and I'm like, so if we don't go, is there? I'm happy to give them to
And
somebody.
this is the first, one of the first forays into private, we're calling
Mm-hmm.
them private parties.
Mhm.
People might be confused that they have to buy a ticket. What do you think? I'm not sure.
I mean,
But if you bought 4, I bought 2,
I
that
don't
means
know.
one
I think
person
it
is
was
buying.
clear.
And
Yeah.
several families, or what it is they're going to buy it. Harriet thought we should close it tonight. I said, no, I don't think so, because there's a lot of people. There's several families that I've talked to that are saying they're coming.
I'm gonna call Mr. Toledo.
So maybe
so-
everybody
okay.
just does things at the last minute, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want somebody.
But no, there should be quite a bit.
Hey, Mr. Toledo, so we're just waiting, but you're now on speakerphone. I think you're logged in to the
Yeah,
cast.
I'm seeing the live feed. I was also on the web stuff that is Chewy put together.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure, so I set it up before I left, just in case.
No, it's
Yeah.
all right. I mean, whichever one
Yeah.
you prefer to be on.
No, this is fantastic. I just didn't know what the plan was since I hadn't really been in communication with anybody. I was just kind of freaking out this morning, not knowing what was going on. So
No, I'm sorry I can't be there. I've been fighting a cold for the last week, and I don't want to keep spreading this to everybody.
We appreciate that, right? With the summer colds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there was definitely some communication on the time commitment for this today. So I'm hoping Hitchcock can make it here very soon because we're gonna run out of time. But this was intended to probably be like a 2-hour meeting, if not more. And I don't think that got communicated. So Mr. Roberts indicated that we definitely we need to try and wrap it up by 2:30. So we're gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, if you need more time, I mean, it's not going to be an issue for me. What will end up, the custodial staff will leave,
Right.
and I'll just lock up. I'll just head over there and lock up the building, so it's not going to be a big. That won't be a big deal.
Okay. Oh, that'd be great
That's good
because
to know, then we don't have to
Harriet
rush.
got stuck in traffic. Lance
Yeah,
got
her
stuck
car
in
was stuck.
traffic. Oh my
Oh, no.
gosh. Oh no. Okay.
Well, I guess then
Yeah. So we're gonna do the best we can with what we
we'll
have.
represent- right, the people we have here will represent.
Yeah. Yeah, because after this, we really only have one more meeting with Hitchcock, so we've got
The
to
final,
be
right?
yeah, really productive today. So we'll do what we can.
Right.
Okay. Boy, I should have asked them to send some PDFs in advance. We could just
Yeah.
walk
Is
through
there a
them.
way? There's no way for him to set the presentation that he has.
I don't know that I don't know what they're bringing with them. I don't know how they've set it up. So
Okay.
yeah, apologize.
It's PDFs, right?
Yeah. I was doing my best not to be a control freak, so I was like, I'm gonna
That's
be hands
true.
up.
I know, and I normally, like, for me, this is like volunteer, so
Yeah.
me too, I'm just like, okay, let it, just relax, Maggie, this is like all volunteer, you know, like I try to have fun with this.
No, we're in great hands with them, so I'm anxious more than anything. You know, to see what
I'm
they come up
excited to
with,
see.
so,
I love design and just the creative process, I like the
Mhm.
creative process, the brainstorming process,
Mhm.
taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, I like that, so
Yeah.
I'm excited.
That'll be great. So, let's see, they're coming. 5 minutes for the next. Perfect. Is she at home? Do you know? Hi. I was just gonna warn you that it's water day out there, so I hope you made it in without me. We noticed.
I walked out, I was like, nobody sprinkled me. I was like,
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the parents was like, "Stop sprinkling!"
Yeah, there's a guy going, "No splash, no
Oh,
splash."
Awesome.
Yeah.
You have a flash drive, right?
I
that we
do.
could Probably plug in. Is this the
Great.
computer that?
No, this is actually a live stream, and so this computer is set up
Oh,
for
got
this.
it. Okay.
So
And this
Mr.
is
So there's actually
Toledo,
going on over
Mr. Toledo is remote.
He's got a cold, so he's saving.
In fact,
Yes.
you know what, Lance, I'm gonna change.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess.
Well, you guys, since you're presenting, you Lance, you guys.
No, it'll be here.
Tom's
I'm just gonna
ready.
turn
I'm
his
like,
view
oh my
around
God,
so he
it's
can watch
working
it.
really well with not being a control freak. Like, it doesn't work. It's not good with me. I'm like, used to be in control.
Yeah.
It's another bad traffic day, huh?
You know, for a summer Friday, right?
Last time, you know, I was like, well,
I can
half hour.
sit back.
That was good.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
like 5-10 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
Some was like, we're not gonna be late. So we
Yeah.
left at like 10 after 12. Gave ourselves 15 minutes to get here.
Yeah.
Still
Wow.
closer every day, but
Yeah, yeah.
not quite there.
Where are your offices? Downtown or?
Yeah, we're right at Wacker and Monroe.
Well, it depends on when the express lane's open. They don't usually switch
Oh.
over until like
That's
1:30 or so, so,
That's
yeah.
just the problem.
Yeah. So once those open up, you have a
Express
better, it's a little
Better
easier.
shot.
Yeah, I can never remember when it is, because whenever we were at,
It is.
HDR on Bryn Mawr, and I was working my half-day Fridays, I would time it so that I could get on the express.
No,
Because
yeah.
I'm like, well, why am I gonna leave early if I have to
right.
sit in traffic? So I would just wait.
You leave at the s- you end up at the same time as what you
Exactly,
usually
yeah.
do.
So, are you able to get in there?
I think so. It seems
Okay.
to be loading.
Okay,
All right.
okay,
There it is.
You got it.
okay. Should we dim the lights a little bit
Yes.
so everyone can see? It's a little,
Right next to you.
okay.
Right there.
Oh, beautiful.
Hopefully it's not too dark. Stay awake.
Let's see, if we
Should
can
be
get a,
a goal.
yeah.
Bridget, touch that, the last icon on the top toolbar. with the
Yeah, I will. As
screen.
soon as my mouse shows up.
Ah,
There
There
we
it is.
are.
Still thinking.
there we
Okay,
go.
I think that'll do it.
Okay.
You might
We'll
want
get
to
a little.
zoom in. Yeah, it'll probably zoom
Yeah,
in.
we also
Yeah.
have copies for everybody at
Oh,
the smaller
perfect.
scale, so
Okay.
that'll help.
Yeah.
And we have your disc to return.
Oh, I'll give it to Mr. Roberts.
Right, so.
Thank you. Timing wise, I'm not quite sure. We never really talked about the length of the meeting. I had assumed that it was going to be probably well over an hour, possibly two, but, so we have the space available for as long as we need
Okay.
it. Mr. Toledo will come over later and walk up
Yeah.
the building.
Okay.
I don't know what your thoughts were on the agenda and the timing, but
Yeah,
I know this is like our big working session,
Right.
so
Yeah.
we just kind of anticipated
Yeah.
being here
So
for a
what
little while.
what we've got is two concepts. One is one program, but a little less intensive of a development plan.
Mhm.
The other one is a little bit more intensive. Both from a dollar
Ooh,
standpoint
yeah.
and a programming
Mhm.
activity standpoint. So, Bridget's gonna run through, we put a site analysis graphic together just to highlight some of the things that we caught.
Great.
There might be things that we didn't catch, and that would be good to hear. Because if there's something that would impact the way in which we design it or refine it or other things,
Mhm.
that would all be beneficial. The goal of today is to identify a preferred path forward.
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean that you have to pick this or you have to pick this, but identifying a direction of one of those two, and then if there are things that, as you all know, that you want to, that you really like about one concept and you don't see it in the other one, let us know. And then we can start to work on the refinements that we have. I think, what's our next date? August?
August 9th.
Yeah,
Mhm.
August 9th, we had talked about. So, in prep for that, we'll be working over the next month then to come up with that preferred design.
Can you remind me, that was a deliverable, or
Yes.
did you, that was just, okay. Got it.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
well, no, it's a meeting where
meeting.
we'll go through the preferred plan
Right, make any
And-
last minute comments
Exactly.
and, okay, got it.
and then deliver. Yeah, precisely. So I'm gonna turn it over to Bridget. She'll go through everything
All
here.
right. Can everybody see okay on the smaller sheets, or would you like me to zoom in on the projector as well?
Let's go ahead and zoom in, so I think if we can just kind of maybe, well, whatever side you want to start off, east to west, west to east, and then if we could do it in thirds. Can you see Mr.
Yeah.
Toledo?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, do you have this on any type of like digital platform? Like, can you email me any of this stuff, or is it all just hard copies?
We have not emailed yet.
I think we could try to knock it out quickly if we could get this computer connected to anything.
Did you drag that on? Did you drag it on?
Okay, just as long as I guess if it's up on the screen, I can sort of see it.
The desktop, and then you can hand me the flash drive. and I can
Would it
email
help
it.
if we move the screen closer to the actual screen? Because you were probably at a
I can
distance.
see Google up there, so I can sort of see it.
It's a little dark. The image is a little dark, so it's not
I'll tell you
the
what,
easiest to see.
I'm gonna email it to you once I get my
Okay.
laptop started up, and then you'll have it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, that's fine.
My computer is
It's the only way to clock you in.
That's it.
Sounds like an exciting activity at home.
All right. I think that might be as good as we can get for the television.
Okay, if you guys are sharing around the table, you could turn me around and I can sort of see what's going on.
Yeah, I'll send it to you here in a second. I'm just getting the laptop going.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay, Bridget, I think we can probably start. We're just gonna talk about the existing site, Mr. Toledo. Well,
Lance is sending you those images. Is that okay if we start walking through that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so as Liz mentioned, these are things that you already know, and by all means, if we've missed something crucial to the design, please let us know, because we want to do everything we can to mitigate the challenges that are existing right now. So we're just going to start off on the west side of the site. We know that there's the turf mound there, so we've called out a couple aspects around this area. First is that the existing asphalt track there's areas that are in some poor condition. We also noted that it's an irregular distance. As far as we can tell, it's a plus or minus 6.5 laps per mile. So I know that when you're trying to do a class, you're trying to do some sort of organized sports activity, that can be a bit of a challenge as well.
They do mile runs, yeah, so that's.
Yeah. The other, of course, item out there is that mounded turf field. And so there's definitely some wear and tear in the high activity spots. We can see even on the aerial images, some patches where the grass has been eroded away. And of course, the biggest challenge is that we heard is that the whole mound is sloped. And that's very hard to get sports fields onto the surface, because not only is there no flat space at all, but some of the sides slope pretty significantly. So we've denoted those slopes in some broad green outlines. The other thing we've noticed about these is there's some muddy edges around the slope. So as water drains down the hill, it creates extra erosion on the steepest portions, and we know that it can get muddy and messy, and that sometimes gets tracked into the school, because we've heard that the children walk right across the middle of that straight into the doors. And so there's a lot of challenges on this side that need to be addressed, primarily stemming from the contours of the mound. The other item we've called out on this side is the potential addition of an elevator. However, as of now, that's not confirmed. We don't have a location or a size picked out yet, but we did want to note that that is a potential improvement that could be coming down the road. I'm just going to shift our view over to the side a little bit. I hope.
Yeah, I would say that definitely that area that you have called out with the blue dash would be what our assumptions would be at this point
Oh,
as
that's
far
good.
as general. Because as you've noticed, most of our kids are being sort of dropped off on Grace. The diverse learners come in from the other side. So yeah, I would anticipate probably leaving more open space on the Warwick side for the diverse learners coming in, so they have more space to manipulate, and then definitely if we do any type of addition, it'll probably be closer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
if you guys
That's a
could
good
flip me
assumption.
over, because so that way I could sort of see what was going on around the table.
You should be getting the,
Can you see us?
it's still in the
No, I can
process
see
of
the
sending, but you should be getting it shortly.
Oh, okay.
All right.
The room's a little dark now, so we wanted to make sure we could maximize the screen.
We're just a bunch of shadows.
It looks like we're having a seance. in
Clean
the
up a
dark.
little bit. Summon the good ideas.
It does, it looks very horrible, like
A little bit.
North Campus plan.
And so then, so then to summarize what we just heard, and we'll add this to the plan. We have a student as well as bus pickup and drop off along Warwick Avenue, and that's where a lot of the high traffic vehicular activity comes. I believe we also saw a fair amount of pickup and drop off along Grace Avenue as well. That appeared to be less formal and more parents just coming and going for their children's pickup.
I will make a little correction on that one.
Yeah,
So
please.
Warwick is all buses in the morning.
Okay.
There are no parents or private drop-offs allowed. And the same thing at dismissal time, it's just buses, no private
Okay.
pickup.
I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood.
No, that's okay, that's all right, that's why we're talking
Some
about it, so.
So some of our parents whose children have need special assistance getting there
Okay,
are granted access.
oh, they are, okay.
Oh, then that must be what I heard with
Yeah,
special learners.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying.
yeah, but the majority of the traffic in the morning is coming off of Grace.
And that's the parents with their
Mhm.
vehicles.
And then the parents who are picking up in the afternoon, they're probably parking in all different
All around.
locations, but we're not coming through that Warwick end. That's closed off until all buses and have left. And I don't know, how long do you usually keep that area closed off?
For the buses,
Yeah.
it's about,
About 3 o'clock?
I would say about 2:45 is when it opens, when it
3:45,
opens up
okay.
again.
Yeah, and school's out at 2:30, so,
Okay.
yeah. So we get, and then, so most of our foot traffic is coming off of Grace too then, yeah.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so we've looked at then the west side and how traffic patterns work around the school. So now we're going to move into the east schoolyard where we've noticed a lot of the higher activity levels last time we were here for our visit.
And
Two- And today, yes.
Yes.
And I'll make a big note for splash zone danger.
Yeah.
But 2 quick things to call out first is we've boxed off the area right along the north edge of the school as the maintenance and utility area. It seems like this is where the deliveries happen, the dumpsters. This is where, you know, the maintenance. This is not as part of the schoolyard. This is not an area for the children. Conversely, on the south side of the building, we blocked out what we were calling the staff and student lounge garden or lunch area. We know that it's fairly nicely planted, looks really good out there, has some nice picnic tables, and it's actually being used pretty effectively in its existing condition. So that being said, continuing on to the east yard, we've drawn some red lines along the building, noting that there's a lot of wall ball activity, that this is really popular activity, but it also can be a conflict of use if the ball is bouncing off the classrooms, potentially breaking windows on occasion, and that while it's, you know, great for the kids, it's not always the most functional purpose when it's right against a classroom window. We're also showing, again in red, a big asterisk, and that's our new main entrance. So we noticed a few things. Having accessible entrance obviously is hugely important. That's really good that we've got that here now, but it also lacks definition. So we've noticed that when you're coming in from Warwick, or when you're coming in from Grace, you're shut straight onto the schoolyard. There's activity all around, balls flying, water guns spraying, and that there's not necessarily a clear route right up to the school. There's nothing to separate the children's play from anyone trying to visit the school itself. It's also no, it's not. It's all, and you're right. It's not clear. It's not visible. And I know that some of this will come with time because it is a recent change, but it's not obvious that this is your main
I don't even
entrance.
think it says entrance on top of it.
I don't believe it does. So there's no signage. There's relatively minimal sign at your other doors directly to this entrance. And so we see that right now as a weakness that can be pretty easily remedied to give you more of a presence and more of a grand entrance and an obvious entrance that can also really help with safety as you're trying to bring multiple people and multiple users through this space.
And it's pretty confirmed that that's a permanent change.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So this is
Yes.
something that's gonna be like there for 2 years and then you're gonna go back to the
Yep.
Warwick side. Got it.
The other big thing about the entrance of your building is what we've noted in the large yellow oval is that this is where we have a lot of gathering. This is where the students come out. This is where the chaperones stand. This is where the parents gather for pickup. And from what we've heard, there's a lot of gathering in the afternoon, sometimes for up to an hour or past an hour. And once again, this is right in the middle of all the activity. And obviously, the people want to be by the door. They want to be by whatever minimal shelter the building offers. And right now, that's still right in the middle of things. So throughout the whole Eastern Schoolyard, there's very little separation for uses, and that can lead to some potential conflicts. Other notes we made is that, as I mentioned, there's very little shelter. The schoolyard is almost all asphalt, so that's a lot of hard surfaces. That is a surface that heats up pretty heavily. There's really no mature trees. There's very little vegetation at all. And so one of the comments we heard from you is that we'd like to soften this space up. We also have marked out just that's the teacher's parking lot, and you can see that yellow ribbon along the edge showing that there's also a lack of a boundary there. There's a physical boundary with plantings and fencing, but we know now that balls are bouncing out of the schoolyard and again having some conflicts. We definitely don't want children leaving the yard and going into a potentially hazardous area. And so that's another area where we can look at introducing some separation that will improve the safety of the schoolyard. Finally, among the areas we do have plantings, you can see some blue shapes. We have the storm drain marked out approximately, but we did note that there's a little bit of conflict with the mulch, that it can become occasionally clogged. We've also noticed that there can be flooding in this area that goes throughout the southern portion of Bed and into the parking lot. So these are some additional issues that we can continue to look at as we refine our design. The final note that we made is the existing playground equipment surfacing is all in really good condition and definitely seems to be popular with the kids. So that was our rough slide analysis, and as we go through our design, we'll explain how we've tried to address these different concerns throughout different elements. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we missed that we should be keeping in mind?
Mr. Toledo, the only thing that thank you, this was perfect, wonderful analysis. I think you've hit all the key points. The only question that I had for Mr. Toledo is, should we note the fact that maybe we do not have accessibility for the people coming in on buses, like an accessible, I don't know how I want to say it, but so our diverse learners mostly get dropped off on Warwick. Right now, we do not have an accessible ramp or any way for them to get up onto the sidewalk.
Right, so I've been working with Alderman Sposato and CDOT. Will be working, and where we have the trees, on that sidewalk, we are going to try to maintain those trees or keep as many of those trees as possible. But there will be some modifications made for a ramp for easier accessibility for our students with disabilities.
Okay.
So there's going to be some cement obviously there, but they're going to try to keep it as best they can to try to keep the existing trees or as many of the existing trees as possible. So that area by the bus pickup and drop off area, there will be some signage and an easier ramp for people to come in.
Right.
But I think it's fair for us to note that that's a current deficiency in our existing site plan.
Yeah, we'll
And
note
then
that that's
we'll
in
just,
progress.
because we just want to make a full list of items that need to be addressed regardless of the timing and when they are addressed. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
I'm gonna go to the computer and move to the next page. Does anyone have anything else while I'm working through that? All right.
So, I think we pretty much got it all. Oh, there is one more. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
She's limited to two.
I know. We should also note that the entrance, there's an opening in the gate off of, what street is this?
Mead?
Off of Mead, that we'd like to somehow discourage. I don't know, do we want to discourage entrance off at this point, or I guess we should at least note it as it's a current entry point that might be contributing to the muddy field.
Oh, sure. And I
That's,
don't know if that's just copy, but we also received a memo from the diverse learners
oh, you
community.
got it?
Yes, we did get that, and I
Perfect.
believe, and
Sorry, I didn't have
unfortunately,
time to look at it.
no, that's totally
Yeah.
fine. And I should mention too, I'm so glad you brought that up. their concern was lack of control. There's no way to fence this area off.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that they thought was a safety risk was the inability to close and latch gates around the entire perimeter.
Got it.
One
Okay.
other thing they mentioned is making sure that gates stay closed.
Mhm.
So that's something else that we can continue to weave into our analysis once we've had a little bit more time to digest and update the plans.
Yeah. So just an update on that. Jennifer Jones caught me one day. I don't know. We were here for a meeting doing something, and then she had asked about the diverse learners community being able to offer some information. Harriet and I had already talking to Elena a few weeks before, and we had asked her for information, and we never got it. So I think Jennifer now is kind of trying to help take the lead on some of that. And so it's really late information for Hitchcock, and I do apologize for that, but I asked them to pretty much put together their list within, a day or two and get it over. So you all have not really had, you mentioned you didn't really have an opportunity to digest it. I'm glad though that you had the opportunity to at least review it. And so we just want to make sure that everyone's being heard. And, and I'm sure they have some valid, issues and concerns for us to look at.
Yeah, and having, we read that yesterday, we looked at how that would affect the design, and really we think that any changes that would need to be added would be supplemental. I don't think that changes any of the broad strokes of our plan. It's really a lot of details, small items like fully enclosing the site, like having gates that automatically close. Very small but practical things that make a big difference in the end, but at the master plan level are going to be a line in the label at this point.
Great.
So we'll be able to incorporate that, and we can weave that into our narrative as well as we continue into our final plan.
Okay. And then if you could help us maybe understand, maybe if that idea comes on board, that it came from that group. So like I said, I didn't read it. So I don't know. I have not seen the request to understand if they are within reason and a master
They
plan
should be
level
here if they
versus.
want to have their stuff.
They were not invited. I understand. Yeah, the timing wise, this all happened yesterday. So anyway, so we're just. We got the list, we can work with it.
Yeah, we will. We'll incorporate that moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Mr. Toledo, were you saying something?
Yeah, in terms of the diverse learners parent group, we've had multiple conversations about quite a few issues. And what you guys have talked about is what they've stated, the accessibility, the safety, making sure that the kids are, that there is an area that can be closed off from parents walking in. That was a big issue.
Okay.
There's also making sure that gates do lock, so that they don't, and again, we have people who are watching the students, but just in case, that is one of the big concerns. So I think you've hit everything that we've talked about.
Wonderful. Great. Well, with that out of the way, then I'd like to move on to our first concept. So you'll see in front of you, we've got a bit of narrative to help explain this, but we're going to focus on the plan. I'd really appreciate if everyone, wants to read this on their own, digest it. We definitely would appreciate any further comments you've got to forward us on once you've had a chance to review everything and think on it for a while. But that being said, we basically divided this into 4 main areas, and we have 2 concepts for you. The first, as Lance mentioned, is it's simple solutions. So we've described this as a traditional schoolyard approach. We're looking at simple, practical ideas that can help mitigate things quickly and efficiently and easily for you. And so, I'm gonna walk through each of the areas and what we're looking at, and then we can talk about the overall function at the end. So looking at the first half, I'm gonna start at the west side again. I have this whole area marked as number 1. And I'm sorry? Oh yeah, thank you. So what we're looking at here, we had a long conversation about earth moving last week. And so what we ultimately decided was to give you one idea where the turf field remains as is. It's still a mound, it's still natural turf. And so what we've done instead, we looked at ways to mitigate some of the existing issues. So if you'll notice that we've drawn on some approximate sizes. By no means are you limited to this, but we wanted to show the maximum field size. So right now, what we're showing you is a U8 soccer field and a Little League infield. And we try to locate these on the very crown of the hill as much as possible to avoid the steepest slopes. That being said, if we wanted to incorporate some form of synthetic turf, we can do those with a slight slope. And so that might be something we can explore should you want to not completely flatten this area and deal with extensive earth moving. So if we are keeping the hill, we have a few items that we think will help address the existing problems. Obviously, we talked about the slopes being a big concern and the various erosion. So one thing that you'll notice is we've got some brown rectangles along the edges right through the center. We noted this is a popular path of travel for the students and also where we think a lot of that muddy, messy erosion is coming from. So all we're showing here are some brick or logs or stone built into the side of the hill that will help mitigate that. It'll show a clear path of travel, direct students on the route they already want to take. Meanwhile, they won't be tromping through the soil. It'll help stabilize the slope and keep things neater. You'll also see the green beds along the perimeters, and what we're picturing these as are water infiltration areas. So when the water does come onto the hill, we can do some very minor grading the corners to direct all of the runoff into these planting beds. We think that this will help keep things a lot less muddy, and that they'll control the erosion, because instead of just going and pooling on the edge of the turf, we'll actually have a place for it to infiltrate in a positive manner.
And we think there's a learning opportunity with those two.
Absolutely.
So as far as your science classes and biology and other things that you might do, not knowing what your curriculum is specifically, but there's an opportunity to allow kids to come out and experience what that is. As far as that material for those crossings, it could be everything as simple as like railroad ties, just laid flat. It could be stones that would either be laid flat or actually stepped up.
Yeah, I guess, so are you thinking of this as something that gets sloped or something, or what? And then, I guess, I'm sorry, and then the other question is, are you thinking of these as more like retaining walls almost?
No,
No, not
Are you
Right,
walls.
I was just thinking retaining, that's what.
Cream along the edges.
Yeah, so it would
So
still,
it's kind of
the hill would
mounted on
still
top of the
crown.
slope down.
Yeah.
so if we're looking at this in
And when we
profile,
have people
you have your flat
walking
track, your hill,
up here,
and
you
your
put the
path.
most pressure
And so
on
we're
the
just
turf.
proposing some plantings along this area so that when it does drain, it has a place to go instead of
Kind of get a
pooling
compact
up the side of the hill and creating a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in these
Having
areas,
those
we
as
could
those
do,
pressure points
you
would
know,
help
we could do
relieve
some,
that
a
and
stone
create
step, which
Yeah.
becomes almost a
Okay.
fun play element,
So
or
we're just
something,
looking at
or a smooth grade that would
modifying
be
it,
poised and
it's not
traversable.
necessarily
Material at this
removing
stage is
any
really,
dirt.
sky's the limit.
Well,
We
these-
wanted to give
these
some
would,
ideas
if you're
for
gonna- if
what
you're
it
gonna
could look
do
like.
this,
No, it's-
yeah.
it's very I know. Looking at it from the top, well, like Cam's question, is it sloped, is it flat, you know, right? It's
No,
so
we'd like-
different
yeah.
for me at least.
Yeah, and we'll show you an option where we do completely eliminate that mound, but we wanted to give you some
Okay.
options if that's
Sure.
not attainable,
Yeah.
or if that's a very long-term goal.
Since
And we
that's
have
what
to
you
live
said,
with
removing
it.
dirt is very
Yeah.
expensive.
It can
You
be.
told us that.
Yeah,
That could be the
yeah,
most
So
expensive part of
yeah, I
this.
like this is a very interesting
Yeah.
concept. So you observe then it slopes most on the east and west sides and then not quite as much on the north and south, so that's why we have the different.
Well, and because you have
It's even on the slope.
the access over on the mead side
Mhm.
and where everybody's coming in, that's where you're getting your most damage.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
based on what we saw.
Yeah, no, it's,
So in order to mitigate that, we're not having the issues on the north side,
mhm.
really at all, or the south side, but it's
Mhm.
really
It's
those east and
minimal.
west
Right,
edges.
right, okay.
But I'll say, I mean, if you're
They're not
gonna,
walking on any grass on the gray side, they're just walking right on
Yeah.
the cement.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're gonna close that gate on mead off, this may not be as critical of an improvement.
Mhm.
That's true, because you don't have.
Right, you
You
won't
don't
have
have
kids
the traffic.
coming across anymore.
I say trampling,
Yeah.
you don't have kids going. to the
It'll be
house
more
and
dispersed.
bringing all the mud.
However, we would still say though that the drainage improvements would probably be a welcome change.
Yeah,
Not only because it's.
Because they're
delineates
probably causing
where it would be
other
west.
issues, right? Drainage, I'm guessing with the water pulling up.
Well, I mean, it creates a mud situation.
It's harming your
It's just
turf.
there currently. and
That's what I
because
was just
Yeah,
thinking.
it could also potentially be damaging your asphalt path.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, even if we were to close off the Mead entrance, I would still advocate to do the treatment on both sides for that reason. Even if, like there's someone on the other side, they're still gonna naturally wanna cross
Yeah,
back and
yeah.
forth and take the short route.
Always.
Instead of going the whole, so why not,
That would be.
why not have a path that we can control?
Right, in terms of closing off Mead, it's just, the traffic flow is so problematic already that to eliminate one more street, because right now, most of our parent dropouts happen on Grace.
Mhm.
I would say 3/4 of our parents drop out happen on Grace. And then you have, between Mead and Warwick, you have the other corner.
Yeah.
And we were actually thinking about, so I don't see us closing off Mead anytime soon.
Great.
Please don't.
Well, honestly, if we improve the situation, I might be a little more inclined to do Mead because Grace is a nightmare. I know.
Right.
All right. So just a few more elements on this side. Obviously, addressing the issues with the turf mound and making this more playable for sports is our priority. That being said, we've kept the layout of the track in place. However, we know that there'll need to be some sort of resurfacing, maybe a little bit of replacement, just to make things nice and new again and make it more functional. The other improvements we've added is we have some existing walls along the edge of the building. We recommend taking out some of that pavement, adding additional plantings. This goes along with the desire to make the schoolyard softer and also could be a supplement to some of the education learning. If we're looking at water infiltration in one spot, we could look at dry plantings in another, the idea of prairies or rain gardens that fluctuate greatly in water level. And so we think there's a lot of aesthetic and educational value to softening this space. We've also shown a few additional benches in this area as well as a bike rack.
And then, I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it out loud. The intent would be for all these plantings then to be plants that could pretty much survive on their own, right? Not a lot of maintenance.
Yes.
and- Okay.
Yes.
Drought resist, or, well, I guess there's water there.
Low
Yeah.
maintenance
Low
all around.
Maintenance, we're not gonna need an additional landscape team to take care of for our.
That is not our intent for any of our concepts.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted you to say that out loud so everyone kind
Absolutely.
of understands it, because I know that sometimes we're like, well, who's gonna take care of it? So we just wanna make sure that we all know that
Yeah. Now, low
this should
maintenance,
not.
low maintenance is not no maintenance,
No
but we're going to do
maintenance.
everything we can to make this attainable and sustainable for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Any additional questions before we move on to the east side of the property? Thank you, Lance.
Yeah.
All right.
So in terms of the area around either the stone bridge or the railroad ties,
Mhm.
those plants, are those raised? Is that just ground level?
No, we would anticipate those actually being in the lowest point.
Okay.
So what we basically want is for the water to flow right to those areas and then be infiltrated in a less destructive way. So that we're going to have those as lowest points possible. And that way the water flows right into them.
Okay.
But ultimately we're not proposing any major changes to the topography on that side. There still will be a slope and there still will be the flat edge around it. We'll talk about some potential grade changes in the next concept.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And then the fields are in the middle of that.
Yeah,
The top of the slope,
as-
we call it the top of the slope.
as close as we can get.
Okay, the top of the slope.
Yes, exactly. So trying to mitigate the worst of the slope and keep the plane on the flattest available. And so that's a great transition into site number 2, which we can basically discuss as the green area on this plan. So what we're envisioning is, since we're keeping that mound and not ideal sports fields, we wanted to look at a way to incorporate some synthetic turf and some flat area. And what we came up with was a U6 soccer field and a Little League infield. And anywhere you see this green and also the darker blue, we anticipate that being synthetic turf. So our goal for this area is to have this synthetic turf field on the other half of the building, and even for the younger grades, the youngest kids, your 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, below the teenagers, you might be able to do some programming out here and take further strain off that hill. So if you're now encouraging some of your sports play off that grass field, that'll give your turf that much more time to rest and hopefully further mitigate some of the problems caused by the slope. So we went ahead and added extra turf, so we can definitely fit sports fields on here. It can be used for any sort of free play. And because it is synthetic turf, that whole area will remain flat. And so what you basically have on this higher north side is a flat area for running around, kicking balls. We've left asphalt around the building so that wall ball can still be engaged, and that when the turf field's not in use, you get quite a bit of play area across the entire span of the site. The other area we've got denoted in here is that little blue patch. So we're actually still suggesting that is a turf field. But we suggest that is your designated performance space. This way it's very flexible, very multi-use. When you do want to use it, you've got an area quartered off and you have a relatively comfortable area for people to sit on the ground, doing banquets if chairs are not available. But when you don't need that area for programming, whether it be a special event, a classroom setting, it just blends right in. It's still going to be synthetic turf, still going to be flat with the rest of the site, or it can be played over with whatever other function you want when you don't need a performance area.
I'm sorry, so are we talking about?
The one that mimics your playground edge.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. The other blue you'll see on here is an asphalt track. We talked a lot about, yes, exactly. The blue lining the perimeter in a rectangle would be a track. And so what we anticipated is that you have your high activity sports field in this area. You can do formal sports, you can do free play. You're going to have relatively hard, flat surfaces, although obviously with the turf there is some springiness and a little more give. But this entire area remains open for free play and some of the more sports behaviors. So then we also have relocated. So throughout both of these concepts, we've tried to relocate some of your site elements. You'll see the brown rectangles, which are your planter boxes, and you'll see our little horseshoe-shaped arbors. And so we relocated those as well, so that we try to make areas in each different zone where that if people are not interested in playing, there's areas to spectate that are outside of the main flow of activity and aren't so in the middle of everything as they are now. That, of course, does connect to the blue walking track and asphalt. And so we talked a lot last time about what do kids who don't want to play do. They're going to want to sit and socialize, or they might want to walk. We also thought it'd be handy to have a perimeter path as well for any sort of maintenance needs, so that there is a path outside of the main activity flows if you are trying to get to different areas of the playground. So we've marked that away. We still think it could be an asphalt, but with paint colors we can make it a little more cheerful, we can brighten it up and make a clear path throughout. The other paving we've got is right through that center area as part of our new main entry feature. So we've got that whole area marked and talked about for bullet number 4, which I'll just skip right to now. Oh, thank you. So one of the things we talked about with your entry is it's not recognizable. It's black shelter.
It's just.
Yeah, so we're proposing that we add an architectural awning to your front entry. This will provide some shelter, it'll make a natural gathering space, and also contain that natural gathering space so that you don't have so much spread into these high activity areas that are needed for other uses.
And it'll make it clear that it's an
And
entrance.
it'll make it
When I see it-
abundantly clear it's an
When I
entrance.
see an awning, I know,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
It's an entrance
yeah.
to a building.
And of course, we can
And
style it to, and
Because
shade.
it comes out a little bit, right?
Exactly,
So-
and we are showing seating under there as well, so that it's not just a transient space, but it is an area where you can gather and be comfortable. And of course, in addition to that visual cue, we can add any sort of signage. We can discuss architectural styles, and once we're ready to begin construction. And there's a lot of potential here to create a really memorable, unique, and obvious access point into the school building itself. The other area of that, as we continue to look east across, is we'll see a bunch of colorful plantings inside a circle. We're calling this the Welcome Garden, continuing our efforts to green up the spaces and give kids the opportunity to interact with nature as part of their school curriculum. We see this as being a fun area with relatively small planting areas. We're expecting some stepping stones throughout, so that's not just something you look in upon, but can get That would have been nice half an hour ago.
Okay.
Just thought about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay,
always
so this
lose
will
my
be-
pointers.
Yeah.
So we can follow your.
yeah, so if you can follow the red dot,
There we go.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I want
So-
best with
These
clear.
stepping stones have the potential to be donated and someone's name on them.
Sure. Yeah.
So that could be a good fundraising, that's what.
Absolutely, and as we talked about fundraising, some items, we could do that with the stones, we could do that with additional benches. We're, the other item we're showing here is a flagpole court. We also talked about other classic school elements. You could incorporate a school bell or a piece of art, but an additional vertical feature here that aligns with that has a central alignment. Again, also, in addition to having a path, you're adding vertical elements like benches, like some low plantings, like flagpoles, is going to help keep that active, running around, ball-heavy uses separate from the traditional play activities. So we're really trying to minimize potential conflicts on the playground. So flagpoles as well could be a potential donor option.
So, so as you're aware, we have that large amount of concrete that acts as our accessible ramp. Are you
Yes.
viewing this as something that gradually starts to slope up?
Yes.
Or how are we? Okay.
Yeah. So we don't see any value in keeping that very large concrete ramp.
Mhm.
We would like to regrade this site because it is relatively flat. We don't anticipate that being a very big undertaking. We
Mhm.
think we'll be able to shift things within the site that exists. Would you
Right.
mind passing this over? And so then, and also we don't want to lose, it's a relatively small yard. You've got a lot of kids trying to use the space. We don't want to lose areas to ramps. So we're trying to minimize that as much as possible.
So by the time we're up to the potential new canopy, we should be relatively at grade then with
Yeah.
the first one.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for what that means is nowhere on site where we
Probably
have more than
sloping
a
up.
2% cross slope and a 5% running slope.
Perfect.
But as I said, it's relatively flat already, so we think we'd be able to accommodate that
Mhm.
relatively easily.
Yeah.
The last,
That wouldn't, it wouldn't compromise any of the ADA features that were put into that, because that was the reason why we put the ramp. The ramp was just put in
No.
last year.
understood. Yeah, our intent would be for every walkable surface to be ADA, and that would include the lead up into the building. So rather than having that ramp, which then makes a section of the area less usable, those ADA improvements, or the infrastructure required to make the area ADA accessible would be incorporated throughout the site to make it just incorporated in the design. It wouldn't be an add-on to accommodate it. It would just be baked in.
Yeah, so when we're looking at it, then Mr. Toledo, it's kind of like all the edges of the site then are kind of coming up to that point gradually at the slope that she's referring
Yeah.
to. So you won't even really notice it.
Correct. Yeah, so the last half of this design is number 3 along the southern edge, and this is your existing playground.
Swings.
Yes.
Yay, swings.
Everyone wants swings. So if you can follow my pointer, this actually expands your existing container. Once again, we've looked at one option where the bricks are moved. Again, this could be another great donor opportunity. These are going to get bigger, so we will need some new bricks, and you can always engrave your existing ones. But what we've basically done is bumped this area out. So the playground now meets your entry walk that runs east to west, and that allows us to get swings in. We did look at if you could keep your container as is and just build on, but because of use zones and safety standards, we did have to remove that hard brick course because it's not safe if someone falls on it.
So is it just this section that we're talking about? The expansion?
Yeah, so if you see the darker green, nope, that's
Oh.
expanded.
That is, I would say somewhere here.
Yeah, so this little dashed half arc here,
Mhm.
where we've let the aerial show through, is roughly your existing
Oh, I
playground.
see it. Okay.
If you follow my pointer,
Mhm.
about here is where your existing brick is.
Oh, I see.
So
it.
it's relatively minor bump outs, but by allowing a continuous soft surfacing, which we anticipate could be a port in place just matched to meet your existing edge, we gain a lot more functionality. Right now, we're
Yeah.
showing approximately 6 traditional swings. These could be ADA swings, they could be your standard rubber belts. And we're also showing 2 group swings. So these are those larger discs where you can fit multiple kids on, which, swinging is traditionally solitary. So these are really good for social experiences, and also because swings are always a high demand option.
Mhm.
The other,
So I hate to read on because I love swings, but CPS is eliminating them. So they are not putting any type of swings on schools.
I see. Oh.
Yeah. So that's I mean, we have to come up with.
Oh, balance.
The
Yeah.
zip line, the zip line.
So what do you-
Yeah,
the
right
zip
there,
line.
that-
That's a great transition, because I was going to mention, even if we were to keep the swings, which we're not anymore,
Mhm.
there are opportunities within your existing areas to add other small elements like spinners, like balance elements. One thing that we heard from your last community outreach was there was a lot of interest in things for the older children. These are often tall towers or nets, and swing sets take up a lot of room. So if we no longer have swings, we could look at things like net climbers or the gravity rail, which is a variation on a zip line.
Mhm.
But all,
Right, where they
yeah,
say
and so we're actually going to get to some images at the end, and I've included some alternative playground images just as an idea, as a conversation starter.
Mhm.
So once we get through there, we can talk about what we might like instead of a swinging element. But we still recommend that you expand the playground, because the play set that's there right now is really geared more towards the youngest. I don't think there's a lot of play opportunities for your older students. And that's what we heard as well from your last community outreach. We want to make sure that we're meeting the students' needs and we are meeting the expectations that we heard about throughout the process.
One thing, just so I don't lose track of it, the one thing that we did here is, and I never really thought about it, but our existing play structure is not handicap accessible. And we need to consider that possibly. I mean, it's I can't remember which play system we put in. I mean, it's something that can be easily adapted by a ramp or whatnot, but let's just maybe kind of keep that in mind, that if we could add an accessible element to our existing play structure, or if not, we might need to consider something of that nature in the expanded area.
That's great. Thank you. All right. So outside of the playground, there's just a few other elements we're showing on this side. As I said, we've relocated many of your elements. So in addition to creating clearly defined walking paths, we also want to introduce some vertical elements like we have along the east-west path. So here we've taken your existing planter beds and just lined them up along that edge. Since we do anticipate most of your traffic coming in off of Warwick Avenue with the buses, although it now sounds like a lot of parents drop off on the north end. But we wanted to create what we saw as the main pedestrian route into the school and keep that separated. So that's the use of these planter boxes here.
And this does two things for us. It not only highlights the access point and the access route into the school, but it also forces the wall ball stuff to go to the north side, because there's no way to do it on the south side. So you're inherently protected from that activity.
Yeah.
As you're making your way in and out.
Yeah, and so to replace that use, we've continued to add more planting beds. These would again be low maintenance, minimal upkeep for the school, but help to soften and green up the space as well. If you look along the sides, we do also show the existing plantings and an expansion to the north, and we're showing some stone cobbles along the existing drain. We're hoping that this helps helps prevent some of the flooding in the area, and when we do decide to move forward with construction, we can look at the grades and make sure that we're getting drainage towards the actual infrastructure and that everything's moving where it should be. We do hope to eliminate some of the water pooling that occurs along the very southern edge of this site.
And this time when we put those in, they should be fixed in place.
Yes, we can secure those. Just add a note that says secured. Cobbles.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so
I don't think we're talking much, I think we kind of established this area was pretty much feeling good the way it is.
yeah, so in this concept, we've left it.
I do want to kind of, okay, maybe we're gonna get to that, but, we still have people who, hopefully, if, depending on phasing, for a while there though, we're probably going to still have people who want to naturally come in here, and then they're told, oh no, go to the side. So instead of coming out and around, I wasn't sure if there was some opportunity to make that connection.
We're not
But
sure.
right now, we have a fence that's here, so you can't come over to the front side of the building unless you go out onto the sidewalk and go to the walk.
Yeah, and right now we're leaving that as is. We actually had done that in the next concept,
Okay,
so
no
we'll talk
problem.
about that very
Okay.
shortly.
Thank you.
One other thing that I've just thought of to address your comment and that we're not showing is we could add We could add a sign as well, like an entry sign, Thorpe Elementary School. And so,
Entry this way, don't go that way.
yeah, so, if we wanted to look at something like that as well, just one more element to reinforce the entry and provide identity as well, because it's not always apparent where you're going, where you're gonna be. So we can, if that's something that would be interesting, we can incorporate some form of entry identity signage as well.
Yeah, and that might be something that we can even do sort of in the immediate future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? Because obviously it's gonna take us a while to get to this point. So
To all
just
of
kind of
us,
when we're
right.
thinking about phasing, how do we naturally get people to start kind of coming over that direction?
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the next page. So as I mentioned, we've divided this document up into an overview where we give a narrative explanation about what the changes are and why they're needed. The next page is simply a labeled plan so that when you do go through, you're able to identify all the different elements. We're not gonna spend a ton of time on this today. I just wanted to point out that it's here. And again, when you review this at a future date, this should be, helpful as well. So I'd like to move on. I'm sorry?
Before you move on, I got a quick question
Sure.
about the performance space. Is that just a different color of
Of turf,
different color turf? Is that what it is?
precisely.
Okay, great.
Yes, yeah, we wanted to show an option that wasn't limited to performance only.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, excellent. And so, any final comments before we move on to our last concept? All right. So as we mentioned before, that was our simple solutions. This is our full build-out option. So while we think both are really strong ideas, this one features a lot of changes. And obviously we think that these are necessary changes for you, but it's going to be a significant investment in time, materials, cost. So going through this, I think checks off all the boxes off our list. And one thing we can talk about at the end of our meeting is how to look at phasing and incorporating different elements to accomplish a short-term and a long-term objective. So that being said, we're going to start off on the west side once again. This time we have leveled your field. No more mound, flat sports field. And so what that does is that eliminates the need for a lot of the drainage along the area. So we've taken your track and we've actually shortened it. So you end up with a smaller field that's going to be a lot more usable and a lot more functional now. The entire green area we anticipate as synthetic turf, and because we're no longer dealing with slide slopes, we can fit 2 soccer fields on instead of just the one. It becomes a lot more functional. The other advantage of shortening this area is it gives us a track with an even distance. This is exactly 7 laps per 1 mile, and we're showing it as a springy rubber substance.
Much softer to run on.
Yes, yes.
For the knees, I guess.
Yes. Now they're young, they don't need to worry about that yet. Yeah, so now we're still showing that entry across Mead, but with these new surfaces, we're not gonna have to worry about what's around the turf because it'll now be the synthetic material. We're not gonna have to worry about mud because it won't be dirt underneath. We're gonna have a nice, smooth, flat entrance right across without any of those drainage issues. And what that leaves us with along the south edge is a new garden area. So rather than, like we did in the previous concepts, putting small garden areas with different functions throughout, we now have a single consolidated education learning garden. And so one of the things that lets us do as well is when we do flatten this, it allows us to move the water into this area. So any infiltration, any pot drainage we need can occur down on this south side, as well as a lot of learning opportunities. It allows us to add some shade trees so that we do have a shady part of your garden. And what we're showing here is a crushed stone path, so something that's still accessible, but has a more organic, natural feel. And we've relocated your existing planting beds into these areas. So once again, we're proposing low maintenance plantings, but having all of your learning opportunities within this area. And also because it will be separated, it'll allow you to use the space separately from your playing fields. So we still anticipate garden beds being tended to by the students predominantly as they are now. These are also really fun elements. So continue to talk about identity. These are a great way to bring, student artwork and student investment into your spaces. Other than that, we're showing the same idea with adding plantings to soften the building edge. This also gives us a little bit of wiggle room if we do need to install an elevator. We're trying to make sure that we've got enough room so that we're not trying to undo any of our potential improvements. It's continuing to show benches and a bike rack as well. as well as benches along this edge, so spectator seating or just an area to sit outside of the chaos that is the east schoolyard. The other thing you'll see is how we curve our path through. And on this plan, although it's not shown at the moment, we have a statement in the narrative about how these garden spaces can connect. So what we would propose is you add a garden gate on each side, the east and the west of this southern area. That can be closed, can be shut off, but when none of these areas are being programmed, you have a way to move between the spaces and a ribbon of green along the southern edge of your school. Any comments on this half?
So we do have the kids who come in off of Grace, and they will be continue to use that entrance as well. So you don't anticipate any issues with a lot of traffic on that, on the track then on the east side. So we'll get a lot of foot traffic over there.
My understanding was that when the track is being used as a track would be during school hours when you have very minimal people coming in and off the streets, and that there's going to be relatively few kids running laps during pickup and drop off time, and so that the track could just function as the normal pathway when needed. So after hours, and then because this is not your high traffic area, it should not be a huge inconvenience when gym classes out here running laps or utilizing the field.
Sure. Okay.
Right. And then you're looking at, so that area that you did not, I want to say, what is that? That's the south end. That's where you're thinking if there's an elevator or anything of any type of addition like that, that's where we would put it.
We were actually thinking, Mr. Polito, I think we're thinking that it's closer to the Grace side.
Yeah.
Oh, on the north end, okay.
If you reference that first page with the blue rectangle, we're anticipating the elevator being there in any concept.
Now, that's obviously subject to change.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, that probably does make the most sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking that makes the most sense only because, I think it kind of then gives us a little more space then for anyone coming off of Warwick who might need a little additional assistance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, no, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, even if that perennial planting bed to the south on this plan has to go away for us to get an additional walking surface to get us over there. But the good thing is that those planting beds are something that are not a high cost item and that we could probably modify pretty easily.
Absolutely.
So I like how this is set up for that.
So you're still seeing an asphalt, I mean, is that, well, really going into that track off of, I mean, you have the existing asphalt, but it can be anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, we're not, actually specifying which areas would need replacement. I think that when we do make improvements, we would address existing conditions, replace anything that's not ADA compliant, that's in poor condition. And we can talk about if that becomes a different material at that time. But for now, we wanted to focus on our major changes. If you'd like us to add a note, just, mentioning that these connection points would be, refurbished, we can definitely do that for you.
No, it's fine. I was just to sort of see my idea. I was wondering why that area wasn't used off. You just kept it as an entry, and that makes sense. So,
Okay. Great. Is everyone all right to move into the east half of the site? Wow. All right. So I'm going to jump straight into our big green ribbon because what you're probably wondering is if our mound is flat, where did all the dirt go?
Yeah.
And so what we're actually proposing is a ribbon of green space. And with that, and this could be, we think is one of the coolest things that we could accomplish is embankment play.
Yes.
So we're proposing we take that extra soil from the other side of the schoolyard and create mounds along the play edge. So here we can actually see we've kept your original play container, original bricks all in place. None of this would have to be removed.
Yeah.
And we've brought in this area of synthetic turf that wraps along the area. So what we've described this concept as is organic and kid-friendly. So we're showing, no straight edges. We're showing this ribbon of green that winds throughout your site and then ends in these tall mounds. And so what we're doing here is we're showing, handholds to scramble up the slope, rope ladders to help traverse it, and some slides coming off the peak. So this actually lets you utilize more, and then that leaves a pretty big empty area here if you want to leave it open for the kids doing gymnastics, or you do want to fill it with some sort of accessible feature or climber or some new element. There's still plenty of room to continue to add features to the existing play container.
That's the
Is
parent
that
yoga.
area
There you
3?
go.
Sorry?
What area is that?
So if you look at the area of green, there is a lump at the top with swings that will need to be replaced, and there is a wave at the bottom with a bunch of ovals stacked inside of it and a bright yellow tube shape. So
In area 3?
Area 4.
4, okay, 4, I'm sorry. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
I don't
He's
think he
turned
can
around.
because he's
Turn
facing
around.
us
Oh,
now.
you're turned around, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so the embankments I was talking about, we've shown with the
No, I'll leave you
black
there, but-
ovals. And so each of those ovals indicates a slope stacking up vertically.
Sorry, I'm gonna turn you
Can
around.
you see the laser pointer?
You can see them. Here,
Not yet.
so this would be the mounded area here, yeah, and then, the other green area we're talking about this.
So how the space would function is we would still have a flat area throughout the entire north half, but we continue to let that play surface here. If we're not doing swings, this could definitely be our older kids zone. We could do tall climbers. We could look at some sort of obstacle ninja warrior course, which is really popular right now with the children. And so what happens here is this flat space continues through this area and then starts building up into these taller hills here that allow play on a vertical level as well as the horizontal surfaces. The other element you're going to see interspersed throughout these green areas are these blue triangles, and we're looking at these to be shade sails. So trying to bring more shade into the site. The other big advantage of that is this entire back half of the hill you'll notice is empty. We anticipate this to be a seating area. So that when you do want to socialize or you don't want to play, you have an area to sit. The turf surfacing will be a pleasant area to sit on, and you'll be completely shaded. And we talk more about that function as we continue to move through the design.
That is a fantastic idea.
The final item with the play is that you'll notice we now have a significant barrier to separate bouncing balls from the play yard. So we can definitely still look at fencing and screening options, but just having this physical difference should mitigate a lot of that conflict with balls leaving the site. The other thing you'll notice while we're talking about balls is we now have plantings along the entire edge of the schoolyard. These large octagons we think can solve that problem instead. These are Gaga ball pits. And it's basically an easy, it's basically it's a contained ball.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's a popular summer camp thing right here.
Everyone
So I'll have to Google this.
yeah, and we have some
Obviously not
images
now,
to
but-
show you in a little bit.
That is
But this
perfect.
is, you can fit 20, 30 kids in each pit, and it
Wow.
keeps the
My
ball
place would love
at
that.
a knee and below level, which we think will almost completely eliminate the danger of being knocked in the head as
That's
you're walking
pretty
through the
good.
site.
It is
I
awesome.
got knocked in the head.
Well, you were playing, you weren't just a bystander, were you?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
playing.
yes,
What
if
did
that's
you-
Garrison's note. I'm
not
sure
really
my
allowed.
gosh, my voice is-
So,
Oh, fun.
so between these elements, we think that this is a really good solution to kind of keep control of some more chaotic elements on site. So looking through this area, you'll also notice large areas of blue cloud-like areas throughout. We're still looking at this area being asphalt surfacing, still flat surfacing throughout, still hard surfacing that you can bounce a football off and run on. But for this idea, instead of taking a traditional linear track, we're showing this undulation that makes it a lot more interesting and also introduces some artistic patterns into your playground, talking again about identity, opportunities for donations or kids to express themselves. This could be a great way to incorporate some more whimsical elements because this is, after all, a place for kids to play. So it serves a very functional purpose as a track, but adds a little bit of fun as well.
So I'm sorry, you're thinking that is an asphalt
Yeah, just painted asphalt.
painted, okay?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so the other thing we're showing here is, some striped foursquare. We can obviously think about any sort of games. As long as we're working with paint, we really have a lot of options for what happens on the grounds plane.
Right.
Other items off here, we do have a few seating areas off this track. So as you move through, we've got planter beds, planter benches located throughout along the periphery so that you can sit and observe without being in the middle of everything. We're also showing a lobby, if you will, or a gathering waiting area along this edge. So again, keeping outside of the main area, we're showing some seating options as well as some picnic or game tables. So we could do chess inlays within these. This could be a place where parents can wait out for their kids, for the kids who want to do a more quiet activity, to sit and stay outside of the action. We are just showing again some stepping stones within the ground plane. We're anticipating these being flat with the ground, but just another visual cue that this is your crossing point. The final element in regards to seating is the same idea as last time. We're trying to do just a little bit of edge and a little bit of separation, this time using your planter beds, so that if you do want to get to the front door, you've got a clear route of travel with a little bit of separation. The final element is your main entrance, and we're showing shade sails again. So rather than an architectural element, these could be colorful, sweeping structures that really draw the eye, and of course match your shade throughout the rest of the site. The other area we're showing at this main entrance is this would be your dual purpose performing space. And that's where the back half of that mound really comes in. And so what you now have is an informal seating area just on the asphalt, painted however you want to denote it as a special place, which both serves as your performance area and as your entry space. And you now have an area to set up chairs and watch, or to sit on the shaded hill and have some tiered seating looking down upon your stage area.
That could be a really fun and interesting element for, some of our outdoor things that we do. We talked about that right there. Just announcements at the Fall Fest or the dance-a-thon.
A little stage area, so
Yeah.
to speak, because
Yeah.
you're right at the dance
Yeah.
and we put up plastic flags to the stage. But this would be,
Yeah.
we actually have
That's kind of
seating.
a nice idea there.
And you'll notice, we kept in mind that you want a flexible space,
Mhm.
that what I'm tracing right here are the hard edges. So if you need a bigger or smaller area, you could easily carve that away from wherever you have vertical elements and expand into the space as much as needed to accommodate either the performance area itself or a place to set up chairs for spectators.
I have a question about the faculty parking lot. Is it gonna have fencing around it to separate?
Yeah, we would maintain fencing along the edges. Our ultimate goal would be to have the entire area still fenced in as it is now and still rely on gates for the access points. We know that containing the activity and controlling access is important for safety.
I just wanna make sure they can get out and not
They can never leave.
So this is much more informal, but we are still leaving a clear path through. So you'll notice along this edge where I talked about those stepping stone paths that's embedded, so we're still showing a path through. We're still leaving a clear path without any obstacles in the way. It's just not as formalized. So our original concept, we're calling our classic schoolyard, whereas this is our organic idea. Any additional questions? We can move into comp images if everyone's ready.
Are we?
I do have a couple questions. So
Sure.
everything that I'm seeing in blue and gray is still asphalt?
Correct, just painted.
Okay. And then the mounds that you're talking about, those are natural, so that's natural grass.
No, that would still be the artificial turf.
Oh, it would be
Yeah,
artificial.
we don't want to give you another mound to deal with. We're trying,
Right.
yes, it would still be artificial turf.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
is it Merrimack
Right,
Park
but-
that has some nice
Oh,
mounds?
but then you're saying, so we're using the excess from the west field and then putting artificial turf on top of that?
Correct.
Some of it,
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Some of it.
not all.
yeah, not all, but we would be able
A
to.
lot of dirt.
Yeah, it won't account for all of it, but it will allow us to keep some on site.
Yes, yep. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but one thing, again, this is getting really into the nitty gritty, but if we do want to keep all the dirt on site, there might be ways to do that with retaining walls on the opposite side.
Mhm.
But once again, we're talking about a lot of labor and a lot of cost, so.
Right.
So we have a few options, but this tries to accommodate some of that in a creative way, and I ultimately think it ends up being a really good experience for the playground.
Is this a good opportunity to start thinking about the potential mashup between the various concepts, or do we want to hold off on that?
What might make sense is, as I've said, we've included some images that we aren't picturing here, so let's go through the images and then we can pick and choose from the two
Sure.
concepts and all the images what we like best.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm thinking about is, obviously on that last one, the swings, as you know, are not necessarily a
Yeah.
popular idea with CPS. So my first and biggest thought is, can we bring that artificial turf concept from the first plan over in that corner and
Oh,
bring that
create
over into
fields?
this plan?
I think so.
So where it's a more formal field,
Yeah.
instead of that area, and then maybe we look at how we could reshape like sort of the organic pathways.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
So that's just my thought on that.
Well, honestly, Pam, I mean, they have do every color of artificial turf on paint. So if you painted the asphalt, you could actually integrate a color that would continue whatever pattern you have. Because I don't think you're ever gonna do competitive
No,
sports over on
no,
that side, so, you know, it doesn't have to look like an official field. It
no,
just has to have
I
space
just,
for it.
yeah, the space is
So,
what
you
I'm
know,
more
weaving
thinking
all those
towards.
pieces together, it's
Yeah.
gonna be impossible just using them.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Does
that's.
the paint hold up for that?
Yeah.
Does the paint have a pretty good track record and durability?
Yeah, we've used some products that have pretty good longevity. It's not a permanent solution, nothing is. It will have to be touched up. Liz, do you know offhand what the average lifespan would be for a painted asphalt surface? I mean, you guys have had that map out there for years, and while it doesn't look new, it's still quite visible.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily get 5 to 7 years.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
And
Well,
then
your
the thing
kids will be
is,
growing up
really,
and
I, and I can't deny, honestly,
Yeah.
I don't think that when the paint was purchased, I don't think, not a lot of research went
Okay.
into
well, the
what
best
the
thing,
paint should really be.
yeah, the best thing about paint is it can really do a high impact at an incredibly low cost.
Mhm.
So, and that also, you know, could be a benefit if you want to change it, you know, every 10 years, it becomes very feasible now.
Sure.
So as we go through, speaking of paint, our first are just giving some ideas of how that can look. So what we see here is an entirely asphalt schoolyard, much like you've got now, but the use of paint is incredibly effective, creating soccer, futsal courts, and we see an infield basketball areas. You know, some of the similar shapes we're showing with ribbons going throughout, and even different themes. This one you can see has a nautical theme. If we continue to scroll over,
Well, and just to point out, the field up in the upper left-hand corner would be very similar to the field in Pennsylvania.
yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Mhm. Are you okay facing the screen, Mr. Toledo, or do you want us to turn you back around?
No, you know what, you guys never moved I don't think you moved the right computer, I'm still looking at I'm just looking at the projection
It's
screen.
this one, right? Oh, that's what I was asking. Are you okay looking at the projection screen, or do you want us to turn around to,
You can
okay.
turn me around to see you guys, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking, where if you were.
Yeah, so
I've
there
been
we are.
looking at the drawings, but
Okay.
just in case, yeah, if
Yeah.
you flip me around, that'd be great.
Okay, you were flipped around.
So as I mentioned, we're continuing to show some more applications of the asphalt. Here we see a couple different items striped on. I think that's a turtle hopscotch.
Yeah.
And once again, we're seeing poured in place surfacing, but we have a completely flat area across. This also does a great job of illustrating the separation. Just by using benches and trees, you've created two really distinct areas. And that's what we're proposing to do with both of our concepts through some of the various elements.
Given your issue with trees that we heard about,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we like the shade sail
Yeah.
approach,
Mhm.
because it just gets away from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's harder to climb and won't break.
Yeah, I did like seeing those shade
Yeah.
cells. I think that's
You know, once again,
yeah.
you have two final options showing, you know, what asphalt paving could look like. It can be anything from an obstacle course to a chessboard or checkers board. Since you do have a controlled site, it gives you, instead of being a public open access, you can do some things with movable materials, which
What are the pieces made out of?
I could not tell you.
Plastic. They have plastic. They have like a
Yeah,
sand-
the only thing with paint, it depends on the type of paint, because we've had some paint out there that's been really slippery. So when it rains, it creates a hazard.
I
So
remember
we'd
seeing
have to
that.
actually look and see, but I love the idea, you're absolutely right. It does allow for a lot of creativity.
Yeah, I'm very confident we could find a product that avoids that issue. We can look for an asphalt paint that's specifically for pedestrian use, There's also mixes you can buy and stir in that provide a bit of grit. So it's like some sort of, it's almost like a sand. And so we definitely would need to do our research and choose the right product. But there are solutions on the market for that. So I don't think that we need to be worried about a slippery surface in the master plan. If you like the paint, I'm confident we can achieve something for you.
Just to interject, Mr. Toledo, I'm gonna have to step out in a little bit. Do you want me to try to call you from the library phone and see if it has a speaker function?
Can you check and see if it has speakers in the grease?
I can use my phone. Are you on your cell phone?
Yeah, I'm on my cell phone.
I can use mine.
No, Sharice. All right, I'm gonna hang up and then I'm gonna see if we can get you out of the phone.
All right.
I'm actually gonna call you now, Mr. Toledo.
Oh, thank you for coming. If you have any comments once you've had a chance to read through everything, please let us know.
Hello? Okay, we're back.
Oh,
Okay, I hope my speaker's up loud enough. Okay, I'm gonna put you closer down
All
here.
right. All right, everyone's back. So next image, we're showing the entry treatment. So here we've got some shade sail ideas. These are really fun materials. The only thing that comes with these is a little bit of seasonal maintenance. You would take them up and down in the fall of the winter. You can leave them up, it just reduces the lifespan. But colors, again, unlimited colors can be a really fun eye-catching area, especially for a kid's schoolyard. There's a lot of imagination and fun with these. The next image shows the alternative, which is a type of architectural awning. I know we talked a lot about, it's very classic architecture, very, classic school with the brick and mortar. So we could absolutely match something like that as well, but still create a very striking, very visible entry. And of course, both of these options will be great for providing shade and shelter on the schoolyard, which is desperately needed.
Yeah, I thinking through that a little bit. Mr. Toledo, so we have the shade sails out there now, right? You take those up and down each year. Is that a big task? Maintenance?
It hasn't been too bad. I mean, it's been there for 7 years.
Oh, they look great. Yeah, they still look good. Okay, so something of that nature would still be, that's something that you would consider? You would prefer that? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer that just because of, again, the flexibility of the color and changing the sound. The architectural lighting is not, everything is making it.
Yeah, although I love the concept of the architectural awning, I'm thinking that'll involve some structure and, that's probably,
right?
It would be engineered, or architected.
It's probably, it's probably like a $20,000 piece, if not more, depending on how we would do it. So, I mean, between 20 and 40. So that's why I'm really gravitating to the
shade.
Yeah, but here again, I just want to make sure that you would be on board with the concept of that. And I think there's some sort of grant out there, wasn't there, from the dermatology,
yes.
So I'm just kind of thinking through going, oh my gosh, that might be really a great alignment with some things that we might be able to accomplish pretty quickly.
Yeah, so moving forward, we'll show the shade sails in whatever final concept we show. And of course, the last concept will come with a price estimate. So we'll be able to start nailing down the investment requirements. Yeah, so moving off the shade elements, we have an image of the synthetic turf field, but I also wanted to bring this to your attention. This is a product from one of our playground vendors. It is a multi-use field, still synthetic turf. And unlike the Gaga ball pits, it's got walls around that can accommodate a lot of uses. So it's not any one field, but for an informal play space, we thought this would be something worth showing to you. You can see incorporated basketball. This might be a solution to alleviate some of the neighborhood concerns about, people lingering too long under the hoops if it is a bigger multi-purpose space using a turf surface. So you can see goals built in. And of course, those walls, I immediately thought of those balls bouncing all over the site. So something to consider. We aren't showing this in any of our designs now, but if this is something that resonates to you, we can add moving forward.
What system is that? What's that turf?
It's Compans. I don't remember what it's called exactly.
Okay.
And this, of course, is just that synthetic turf field. I did include this to show that you can add color, even incredibly small amounts, and get into a lot of detail. So as Lance mentioned, if we do want to incorporate some of our patterning into a turf surface, we have options.
A big Ford Beagle.
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm sad you guys didn't notice. I put an eagle on your
Oh,
resurfacing.
no, I didn't see the eagle.
Oh.
You know, we've got another option for where you kick the balls up against the wall with that element on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
You notice this guy's carrying soccer balls with him.
Yeah.
They use that wall to kick against.
Oh.
And so you have a synthetic turf field.
So we can bump it sort of all
Yeah, we
around.
can literally just build you a wall if you want.
Right.
Ah,
If you want us to build you a block wall, we can do that, and that can be your new ball bounce area.
Along which wall would that
It wouldn't even have to be a wall. We could put it
Oh,
anywhere on the
I see.
side.
Yes.
be? Standing structure.
Yeah, exactly. We could do that for you.
Wherever we want.
Because I think, well, I'll speak from the life of the building. I mean, getting the wall ball off the wall.
Providing somewhere else to play wall.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Freestanding wall.
Yeah, we don't want to
Would
eliminate the
be-
activity. We want to get it off the building.
Right, we want to move it to a more productive area.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so this court is one option. We've got another one on the next page that we'll get to
Yeah.
shortly. The last item is the last row is a lot of site furnishing. So we've shown a learning garden. This is more of that meandering path. We've got natural materials in here. So, using logs, it doesn't have to be hard surfaces. It can be very organic. And of course, something like a learning garden can be something that students and parents can help build as a community project as well. We also talked a little bit about power. I really like this product. This is a light fixture, but it also is basically tubes that you stack on top like Legos. And so you can add Wi-Fi emitters, you can add power outlets, you can add emergency, broadcast buttons. And there's something like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I believe. Yeah.
So this is a cool product that I think, obviously it provides pedestrian lighting, it's a security feature, but you can add and customize and swap in and out all these extra features that are starting to become almost expected and required today. So things like the Wi-Fi, things like the power outlets.
Question on that. I'm glad you brought up lighting because I don't remember us talking about that.
We
before.
didn't.
Are there areas pointed out or? Okay.
We don't have any lighting shown yet.
Okay.
We know that some form of lighting, if nothing else, security lighting will be necessary. Actually, I did mean to ask you, but we went so long last time I didn't get a chance. But perhaps on our way out, or we can discuss what you have now and if it's meeting your needs.
Right now, we don't have anything.
Right, there's nothing, right? That's a
But Mr. Toledo, I think, well, we ran conduit on the south site when we did the playground.
Mhm.
That in anticipation of getting the electronic sign up and running. So right now, we only have power on that side of the field. Well, right, we have the conduit, yeah, we have the potential for
Okay.
for power over there, so
So I'm gonna ask
this might be
two.
a whole big discussion on lighting and
Yeah.
security.
I don't want to derail us too much, so I'm just going to try to ask two quick questions
Yep.
that'll get us started. The first is, do you anticipate any night use, or would you like the space to be lit well enough to be used at night?
Primarily just for safety in the neighborhood.
Safety only? Perfect.
Some of the issue.
Okay, perfect.
So, I mean, we're putting in development to help with that. I mean, we're here because of the option of the COVID, like that, but that's been one of the concerns that the neighbors have brought up.
You hear?
And in fact, that's one of the things they're saying, when are you doing this? Because we really think that you need to do this as soon as possible.
Okay.
And I'm like, we're working on it, is what I think.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question is, are the neighbors pro or anti-lights? Because we get it both ways, where they want it illuminated and safe, but they don't want it spilling onto their properties. It sounds like your neighbors are open to the idea.
I think my neighbors would be open to the idea, but it would probably make more sense to, come up with light fixtures that aren't going to be too, I mean, they do want it to
Absolutely. Okay, well that's perfect. That's enough to get us started on, and we can start incorporating lighting locations onto our final concept.
Just have a real quick question. Are any of these, are there any options for like solar?
Yeah, yeah, solar's always an option. Really, anything's an option now.
I wouldn't do solar for your site lighting, only because you want to have a pretty consistent power source for that. I would,
For
from the
ambient.
environmental, ambient lighting, you could do that. From an environmental side, we could certainly do the dark sky compliant ones, which is basically focusing all the light down, as opposed to having a blue glare that the neighbors would see.
Yeah, that also helps with any neighbors who don't want lighting because it contains it to the site. Yeah.
Mr. Toledo, so I don't know if you know this, but, we're starting to finally see those new, street, light fixtures going in, the ones that they have like the high and the low. They throw off a tremendous amount of light.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you know anything about that, and if we're anticipating any of those happening on this block anytime soon? Could you, if you wouldn't mind asking if the blocks are on schedule for that? I see them sprinkled around. I can't figure out who's getting them and what ward they're in. But and if we do get those, that I don't have the specs on them, but they really light up the sidewalk a lot. And that might kind of help us a little bit with security and maybe only needing to do a little more lighting in the central zone of the site. But just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's good to know.
I'll put on this radar right now. And he's also helping us out with the extra camera plate. So I'll mention it to him, but that's probably going to be I'll say it's already slated.
Yeah, we just like to know when it's happening, if we're on the list.
Yeah. Well, please let us know if you hear anything. I feel like we're starting to run long, so I'd like to try to get through the images so we can still have a discussion at the end. I'm just going to fly through these last two on this page before we move on. These are just some basic site elements. Bike racks we heard required at the school. Also the idea of game tables. Can just be a normal table, or if you want to bring out game pieces, they're pretty practical items. The last page, like I said, I wanted to include some options for different elements we could add. So we got three that talk about ball use. So here's those Gaga ball pits we talked about. Alternative to bouncing off the wall. The one right next to it is a really similar concept. These next two are actually from a manufacturer called Yelp, and they do really cool electronic play. So these are actually wired in, there's electronic elements. This first one here that looks like the ball pit basically functions like a large Gaga ball pit, except it's got small goals notched into it and it's hooked up to the electrical. So you can play pre-programmed games on this court. For example, you can say, blue team, your goal is here, all of a sudden, boom, your goal moved. And so it's an extra level onto that Gaga ball pit idea that still controls the motion. The target wall is, like I said, the same manufacturer, still electronic. Each of these panels lights up, and so it actually is a target kicking wall. So, and this one is pretty cool because it's come to an app. So you can check your high score, you can see, who's doing what on the wall, who's playing where.
And so would never want to leave this. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Our backyard is not this exciting. They would be like the target wall.
Yeah. So both these projects, so both of these are a solution to the ball kicking option. And by introducing the electronic aspect, it allows a lot more variation and allows multiple different uses to it. The other thing to point out is these nice big screens. We could definitely incorporate something like this behind where the balls are going, along the play edge.
Okay.
There's a specific fence product that I really like, which basically disappears. You put it in, and it's just this very simple black line, and you don't even notice it. So as we continue to look at edge treatments, if we do want to do a fence rather than some tall Topgolf style net, there's some fencing options that can be very discreet.
Okay. And that looks like it's obviously like a no climb.
Oh yeah, you cannot climb on something like that.
No.
Yeah, the rest of these images are some variation on play. We didn't talk about previously, but I wanted to show some nature-based play. Swings are out. We can get rid of that and ignore it. So as we continue through, you think the group swing might be okay? Okay, I see. Okay, well, let's.
Those, have you guys used the grip swing? They have them at Maggie Daly Park.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor has them too.
Does she? Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It is kind of fun because you can, just like it shows, you can put a couple kids on there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's much more social than the
Mhm.
traditional systems, which is why we really like it.
Yeah.
The next two images showed mounds. So to answer your previous question, we can absolutely do a synthetic turf on the mound.
Oh, I love
This also gives a good idea for some of the elements. You can do what we call glide rails. You can do crawl through structures, slides. You can see small little handholds within the surface to climb up. These obviously
It's like
have
Merrimack
tunnels.
Park, right?
And
Merrimack
since your mound is two-sided, we could potentially look at tunnels as well. So a lot of really fun options with the embankment play.
Are you guys familiar with the 18th Street?
18th Street.
I think it's 18th Street. That wall is so high, but it reminds me, that last image kind of reminds me of that, yeah.
You can look at
It's
that.
a really tall, but it's an incredible playground down there.
18th
I'm pretty sure it's 18th Street.
We'll look into
I'll
that.
verify that, yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, so just moving back to the last images, like I said, some new other options for play. We're showing some net climbers here. They can obviously be bigger and taller,
Yeah.
or they can be smaller systems that incorporate multiple experiences within the nets.
Yeah.
We're showing some sculptural play elements. So these are climbers, but they also have a bit more of an artistic side rather than our traditional coasted deck. Some group play elements, in my experience, spinners are always incredibly popular. So we would definitely recommend, and they also don't take up much space. So we could easily add some high impact, smaller elements like this, even within your existing container. And finally, the last element we're showing is musical play. So something more interactive. They're not, they're not symphony orchestra music, but if you wanted to bring us a class outside and have a music class outside, or just enjoy, pounding on the drums or playing with the xylophone, these have been pretty successful in some of the playgrounds we've installed them as. So we've given you a lot to think about, and what we want to do now is start talking about what we like and what we don't like and narrowing things down. This won't be our last chance. We definitely want to collect any additional comments that you have after you've had a chance to think everything over and digest it.
Yeah.
But as we start out, besides none of the single swings, is there any other notes that we should talk about, or any one concept that becomes our base as we modify it moving forward?
Just a couple of questions. And I know we're not quite ready to talk about cost, but if you had to throw something out there, what are we kind of talking about as far as, I'll speak for myself. This concept blows my mind. I love it. And I wish we could do everything on this plan. So
Right.
I'm just kind of thinking
Agreed.
through, are we looking at fundraising for this side of the lot on its own, like $200,000? Or are we?
boy.
I'm just throwing it out there, Lance.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know where we are at.
I would almost have, let CPS handle the mound.
Right.
I think the
Right.
mound is gonna be a significant
Oh,
parent, and I don't think
Capital
that you're gonna get,
improvement
I
kind
don't
of.
think you're gonna get the oomph out of it
Yeah,
that you really want,
yeah.
for the majority of the kids. Whether you have one field or two, it'd be great to have two, it'd
Yeah.
be great to have synthetic turf, but your real high energy impact is on the east side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Is we spoke briefly about phasing, and so obviously you could split the two schoolyards out into two phases. But one of the reasons we initially showed you these as numbered sections is we anticipate you could easily take any one of these numbered sections and
Yeah.
start implementing that separately. So we've tried to begin a preliminary discussion about how you might break up the work so that you can accomplish it in smaller, more manageable sections.
I mean, even if you didn't do the mound first to get the dirt, you could still use geofoam and build those up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just put the synthetic turf over.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I know we,
One way that I want to approach this is actually, I don't know if you guys heard, like Hamilton's got a rate from the state. I have a number of representatives and senators, state it all sort of ties in. I like the idea of breaking each of the sections down in terms of fundraising. And overall, I'm loving, actually, I like elements of both of these plans. But the number one thing on my mind right now is just that entranceway. And also having some sort of security for the kids, because I don't like the fact that we have people coming in with people out on the playground at the same time. That's the first thing I'm like in terms of if we're thinking about what will come first. I would really like that to happen.
That is an excellent administrator answer.
Safety first.
Having
Safety first.
Having elected their administrative degree,
Oh, funny,
I
yes.
understand where you're coming
But
from.
yeah, I guess. the
And I
safety
think my question was a little at a much higher of like the 10,000 foot level in thinking at the end of the day, our goal here is to come up with one plan that we're going to use as our guide moving forward. So, do we want the plan that shoots for the stars, thinking that someday we're going to get all this money and make all these wonderful things happen? Or do we want to get a plan that maybe we think is a little more obtainable, but still kind of reaching? And my thought on that is, do you shave the top of the mound off, put the dirt on the other side, and then do the mashup of the field where you got the drainage, you take off the top, you still move the dirt. And then I like the elements of the first plan for the field, but this of course would be the ideal condition. But, will we ever get the money to do this? And should we be looking at how we improve what we have and maybe in a possible more obtainable option in the next 5-10 years? I love the concept on the east side. I would like to see a little more turf over there, and we just kind of talk through that, and maybe that playing field over there. Love the Gaga ball, but I would still like to get rid of a little more of the hard surface. But I like this organic feel.
Cam, I
of
think
this.
you could actually, the turf area on the north edge, actually swing that right underneath the Gaga ball tips.
Yeah,
And actually just continue it right across, all the way through.
Right.
And just put, if you have the Gaga ball pit, I mean, all they need to be are walls.
They're just
You can
walls.
play that
Yeah.
on turf.
They're just
You
walls.
can just play it right on the turf.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think, a lot of our concerns right now from parents are there's too much hard surface.
Yep.
Kids are gonna get hurt. I'd like to leave our playground 100% fully intact, although I think the other plan is beautiful. Just so much heart when it's moving bricks and something got damaged.
We
Wow,
understand.
we would get that would just be challenging for us to deal with logistically.
Well, honestly, by
So
moving
that's
the-
kind of where I'm seeing this
with the
plan
swing
come together.
sets going out, then, the key that Bridget and I went back and forth on the swing sets, and, how you orient them and arrange
Right,
them and
because-
the impact of that play surface.
The ball zone is tremendous.
It's
So I was like,
massive.
you got a
Right.
swing set in there?
Yeah,
We tried. Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing to mention too, we actually played a lot with your existing container, and with that
Mhm.
first concept, we can fit a single group swing in your existing container without blowing it out. What we're
Right.
showing now is actually 2 group swings sharing a frame.
Oh.
So we do have an option, but we wanted to show
Yeah.
you the maxed out design. Because we'd
Mhm.
much rather go smaller than have you be underwhelmed.
Yeah.
So if you do want to go back to that first design, we can get 1 group swing in without blowing out your existing container. Just for reference.
I'm just thinking out loud. I know there's a lot of, but
It is a lot to
but I
take
think
in.
like to put something like that over here and then get this all with all the sort of structure play and then getting that sort of open field concept over in here feels good. I love the shade structures. I kind of like where this is all going. But what I really loved was that more formal
I did too, I was gonna say, because it signals.
I really love that.
It signals that it's the
That really-
entrance.
Yeah.
Because what I think might happen is when we take these shade structures down for the, for the winter, then we're still gonna have a little bit of that same problem. And I kind of like that more, I guess I like the edges to be more formal and then the inside to be a little more free form.
So I don't, what do you guys?
I agree with you,
think?
I agree with you. I'm, just one question, what are these?
Maybe not super hard edges, but you see what I'm getting at.
Oh, yes,
that's
you missed
nice.
that. Yeah, we were
Oh,
thinking,
that's
what is a
nice.
classic,
Oh,
we,
yeah,
we
yeah.
call this our classic elements, we're thinking what's classic
Yeah.
school bells, flagpoles, we also talked about, you could do some sort of community art in the center.
Would you mind showing that, projecting that one back?
Yeah,
up there?
absolutely.
Sorry, we'll just, give Harriet a quick overview of
Sorry.
that. I know, you had a rough
Some issues.
afternoon. Is your car okay?
It's okay.
Oh, my gosh.
Second time. It's no. But Cam, you know how you were saying you'd kind of like to have this extended?
Yeah.
The thing is, what I like about this is it keeps the play in this space, whereas if you extend it further out, then you'll have some,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? You'll have some of the kids,
Leakage.
Well,
They
this
like
is,
her
yeah.
around.
And that's
Yeah.
kind
I
of
know,
like,
it's almost like we're building a
yeah.
big thing or something, right? Like, or like a,
I really like
Yes.
this, and I like it here, and I love this, but I love how they
Right.
thought about this whole playground area and the
And I love the
entrances in and out and getting the wall ball off
Right.
the wall.
yes.
So I almost feel like I'd like to keep this and then fill in the rest and move things around.
Is that the
as needed.
architectural on you?
It is, but
Yeah,
we can
we
sub in and
yeah.
out whatever
Yeah,
features. It sounds like this,
Cam, the shade sales
Yeah.
are gonna be more feasible.
sounds like the strong consensus. I've actually already written twice shade sales.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Maybe this doesn't have to be so hard and formal, but I think it's more this zone right there sort of being the garden.
I think that there's an opportunity to integrate something that creates a recognizable entrance
Yeah.
into the other plan
Yeah,
or
yeah.
orientation, so that, it's clear where you're supposed to go, but
Yeah.
it may not be perfectly symmetrical.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because like you'll see when visitors come to our site, if they've never been here before, they don't even begin to understand where they're.
Yeah.
That was me last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But that eliminates a lot of the gathering areas that you put in.
As Lance said, we might, but if we keep things slightly asymmetrical, we might be able to just skew that gathering space to the south or the north.
Yeah.
And so that we won't lose that function entirely. It'll just be offset.
It's kind of like just the concept of this is the node that you're eventually going to make your way to, and it kind of draws you in a little bit.
Did you get a chance to read through the email I sent about
Yes.
the diverse learners?
Yeah, to give you the 2-second summary of our early discussion, we think we can easily accommodate all those elements without changing the concepts drastically. Moving forward, we're going to incorporate labels and symbols that meet those requirements.
Because I've seen some kids try to fit in between the slats or the fencing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and two have gone out, and I'm like, oh
my
I was
gosh.
hoping we wouldn't have to replace
Wow.
those.
Yeah. But I mean, they were little. They were 3 to 4, but still.
Oh, okay. So it must be little
Yeah.
there because they're
Yeah.
usually
I
4
know,
inches on
Cameron
center.
couldn't
fit
It's like
there.
so that you
No,
can't put
no,
your head through it.
At the most,
If you struggle
kindergarten.
with the
But yeah.
That's actually an interesting.
But
point.
my
I wonder
kindergartner
if we
went
have to
through
do
there.
ASTM standards for
Yeah.
fencing. I wonder if
I don't
since it's a
know.
play environment.
I feel like
Well,
whatever
if
we
it's
do.
existing, maybe not, but
If we
we
replace
should
it,
look at it because I thought they were.
Well,
I
if-
thought they had the.
well, if we do replace it, we can find something they won't squeeze through for sure.
Yeah.
Or put like
Well, if it has to be
plant structure
replaced.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
yeah,
or
or
just
just
plant
a
structure
mesh.
that's- yeah.
Yeah, we can find something.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that was a top concern, just from the diverse learners.
Okay. I saw
Wow.
security was an issue. I must have missed the part about squeezing between the
Oh, no,
cars.
no, that wasn't part of
Oh.
the email. I was just saying, I've noticed. it
Okay, you
personally.
scared me.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
no,
thought I
no.
read it.
But they do have, what Elena called elopers, where
Yes.
it's,
Yeah.
the kids trying to escape.
Yeah, our biggest takeaway from the memo is that the site needs to be fully fenced and that we rely on self-closing gates to maintain order and containment.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think there's probably some nuances that we'll get with a second and third read-through, but
Yeah.
we don't think that, and we don't think that anything they brought up will change the bones of what we've shown you today. And we also talked too about the entire, everything we design, everything we build will be ADA, just built in. We won't be dealing with any ungainly ramps.
Yeah.
So that concern will be incorporated into any new element on the site.
So, one of the things that I noticed, I mean, I like both designs, obviously, but I like, you know, that first design, I really like just the entrance-way. Makes a lot of sense in terms of the open space the kids can actually play on. I found that oftentimes that's what they want more than anything else. And so, you know, sometimes we're that's something we look at and we say, oh, we'll have all of these full sections, we'll have all of this going on. And oftentimes kids will be like, no, we just want to run around. So I just want to keep that in my design sheet. Is really try to, I can see that you really try to minimize costs with so much hard asphalt kept in that second design. But the whole idea of, you know, having an area where they can run is perfectly fine. You know, they don't have to have that many sections.
All right, understood.
But one of the other things is, you know, the ones who are missing from this are these teachers and some representative students are going to be really critical in terms of coming up with you know, like their input is going to be valuable for a lot of things.
So how do you propose we solve that? Would you like to invite a representative to our final meeting? Or is that something that happens after the final plan? Because we know that we aren't going to hand this to you and you're going to turn around and put the shovel in the ground.
Right.
Is this something you'd like to do on your end with the final concept and start doing public outreach with that? Or do you need to incorporate them before we give you our last deliverable?
I think we need to share some of key people, maybe teachers for sure, and maybe even seeing if we can get a group of kids together to talk about some of these things. I know that some of our student council kids would be willing to do it. I have about 150 kids funding me right now. We can definitely use some of them to just think through some of these ideas. Because their input is really, I mean, it's really critical. They're the ones who are going to be using the fields. They're the ones who are going to be, and I'd like to see some of the things that they're thinking about. Some of the kids are going to love all of these different elements. And others have others that are like, we just want to play soccer, or we just want to, play football. And if you do this, we're not going to be able to do, we're not going to be able to do that. So I sort of really, I think that I can probably get some kids together next week to start talking about some of these plans, and also sharing it with our kids and teachers. And maybe not even some, understand before the meeting on this.
This is actually a great time to talk about schedule then, because our last deliverable is going to be August 9th. So I think what would be perfect then is to let you share this around as you see appropriate to the students, to the staff who are relevant, if there's any parent groups, and then you can coordinate all of that, receive comments back. Harriet, do you mind coordinating comments from this group again? And so we'll spend a week to a week and a half gathering feedback from all the relevant groups. And then once we, Hitchcock, receive that feedback, we'll start incorporating that into our final plan for our August 9th meeting. Does that sound feasible to have everything back to us by Wednesday, the week of the 8th? I think that would be the 10th or 11th of July.
Mr. Toledo, are you thinking the week of the 8th?
I'm thinking, yeah, we could probably get something back to everybody by,
July.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we can probably do.
well, I'd like to propose something if you don't mind. We really have to keep in our contract with Hitchcock definitely does not include us having an additional meeting, but I am more than willing to help facilitate the conversation on Friday, July 12th. If you'd like to do that, if you would maybe like to give everyone your key stakeholders, whomever you think that should be, maybe, we could forward the PDFs. People can take a look at them, come prepared with comments, maybe for the 12th. I'll have to ask Harriet if she's even available. We have to kind of coordinate schedules. And maybe we just do a working session together in hopes of doing that. Okay.
Yeah, the other comment I'd like to raise, if you allow me to interrupt quickly, I don't know what state grants you're looking at, Mr. Toledo, but some do require public community meetings. I do not know because I'm not familiar with some of the school grants, but I would also suggest you look into those requirements as well and make sure that if you do need any sort of public outreach, that we accomplish that before we present you our final deliverables, so that we can say, yes, we've met this requirement, and yes, our plan reflects this community input. So I would just ask you to keep that in mind as well as we finalize our schedule and think about who we're sharing this with.
Okay, so, Mr. what I was actually thinking about was, I was actually thinking about sharing some of this with Goldrick, Mr. Ryder, and then actually meeting kids and having sort of just an informal getting together, and then giving you notes based on that.
Okay.
It shouldn't be, I mean, it doesn't need to be a real, it's just to make sure that we're getting voices, other voices, in a timely manner.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I just want to be able to facilitate anything as much as I can, because I'm volunteering my time versus us adding in another meeting. So I'm more than happy to help in any way. So
That's what I'm saying, we may not even need that. What I'm
Yeah.
thinking is, I'd like to
Okay.
get a little bit of feedback just a bit more, but no, I'm liking, like, either one of these two plans is fantastic. I could hear everything you guys are saying. I just didn't want to commit, simple, for me, simple is better. Just because typically more, it's something that's, it's just versus, in essence, self-funding and hoping, probably makes more sense to go with something that's a little bit less expensive, and still pretty practical. But that's my opinion on this. I don't know where you guys are standing. Where you guys are leading.
I think the group here, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that we were looking at just different elements from each plan that seemed to sort of speak to us and ignite some excitement. So I think we are kind of looking at sort of finding a way to merge some of those elements together, so that we have things that make sense from a timing wise and phasing wise and money, but there are still some really interesting, fun and exciting elements, so that it really kind of sets us apart.
you know, from other facilities, and it really gives the kids some new and interesting ways to think about their play. So I think that's kind of where we landed. So
I couldn't hear everything,
mhm.
but what I really did like on that first plan, that center cover area type of thing.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
that was a really nice feature, and it makes the entrance, especially either with an awning or with details,
Mhm.
it would really highlight what the entrance of the school is.
Yeah, I think that we're all in agreement on that aspect, that seemed to speak to everyone. The shade sails are definitely the direction that Hitchcock's gonna work towards, and I think we all enjoyed that center element concept.
Yeah, so I think I was gonna say, I think we've collected some really good preliminary feedback. We're not going to make any moves forward until we get your final feedback, both from the group here today and your additional outreach. And so really, we were just looking for additional initial reactions, which I think we've got pretty good. I know we're starting to really run long. I don't want to keep anybody here. So are we in agreement then that we will receive all the final comments the week of July 8th, and then Hitchcock will move forward and give you our final deliverables on August 9th as planned?
Sounds great.
Wonderful.
So Mr. Toledo, then, so you said that you're going to go ahead and have those meetings and then collect comments then for the July 12th?
They have my office for each and everybody here.
Okay.
I want to appreciate that. Because my guess is that we're going to have the same type of reaction that we have. So there's
Mhm.
really good things from both sides. So,
Right.
hopefully they'll go on.
Bridget, you were saying July 8th you'd like the.
I said the week of.
Oh, the week of. okay.
Yes.
So we're gonna set, by the end of the 12th, by the end of the week.
By the end of that meeting,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on this for next week, so hopefully we can get
Yeah.
that done.
If you get them sooner and you're done sooner, we'll take them as soon as they're ready. But we know with the holiday, it could be a little bit of a struggle. So
Yeah.
just keep us in the loop and let us know if you're having trouble meeting the deadline or anything like that. We can make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward.
And you'll have some direction.
I mean, so I don't want to keep anybody any longer. But the parents there already have some ideas, like, hey, there's something, I don't know, if you get a little bit of time to talking, what everybody needs or wanted to do this after they get the feedback from the meetings.
What do you guys think? You want to meet another day and time? I'm gone all next
With
week.
I'm gone all next week too.
Yeah.
So off of the top of your head, what were the things you guys were what else did you want to
Would you like me to just read through my summarized notes very quickly for what our initial thoughts were?
if you don't mind, nobody cited, everybody was talking about this.
Sure. Yeah.
They're already there, that's fine.
Okay. Well, what we can do is we can send out a meeting summary, much like we did last time. We can get that out to you sometime next week, and then you can have that while you continue to collect your own thoughts. Will that work for everybody?
Mhm.
Wonderful. Then I'll just summarize our comments and our thoughts in that summary.
Yeah, sounds great.
Lovely. Well, thank you all for your time today and really great feedback. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
you.
you.
So, is Jason leave already then?
Yeah, I think he had some afternoon things he needed to get to. So I think it's just us in the building.
I know, it's not a hard thing. My kids are hopefully not.
I'm okay to hang out a little while if you would like for us someone to be here until you can get over, or however you wanna.
Well, if you just do me a favor, as soon as you walk forward, just let me know.
Okay.
which one, that, let me know. And then I'll sit by there and turn on the alarm.
Okay, all right. So, okay, yeah, I will, I'll send you a quick text and let you know that we're out of the building.
Wonderful. Thank you guys.
All right.
Anything,
Yep, yep. All right, thank you. Okay, bye.
So you have your.
I don't know how to shut down the
Would you
light.
like me to send you a PDF to distribute
Yes,
to everybody?
yes, now we can
Yeah,
forward
okay,
that.
wonderful, then I will do that as well, and here's that disc that had the plans on it.
Okay,
We were able to get those, no problem, so whoever needs that back,
Thank you.
can have it back.
Sounds good, thank you so much.